My name's Ryan Diamisi, and I work for Christian Wealth Management. The goal for my clients is to redeem their money as a tool to build their faith. So today I just wanted to think through what treasure may mean. Now, I wanted to start by reconsidering Matthew 6, 19 through 21, which I'm just going to read. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. It's an interesting thought to store up treasures in heaven. I don't know exactly what Jesus means by this, but there is a instruction to avoid storing up treasures on earth and to pursue what does it mean to store up treasures in heaven. And I also am encouraged by the reminder from Jesus that where our treasure is, where we put our treasure, our heart will be there. So you could Google a story of a man who lost his Bitcoin. And it's a fascinating story. It's of a man in 2009. He mined about 8,000 Bitcoin. This was when Bitcoin was close to no value. The rumor has it, or how the story goes, is he stored it in like a secure, maybe a USB, and put it in what I would call a technology junk drawer. And as you continue reading about him, you learn that it was around 2013. Maybe him and the people that he lived with was maybe doing spring cleaning, which is a good idea to keep your house clean. Somebody in his household had thrown away that USB accidentally. So this is in 2013. If you look up the value today of one single Bitcoin, what you'll learn quickly is that this USB that's been thrown away is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. So, as you could imagine, he's been trying to search the landfill to see if he can find this USB that contains hundreds of millions of dollars worth of value as of 2026. So if me or you were in that situation, or maybe I should just say for myself, if I'm in that situation, I'm probably doing the same thing. I'm probably devoting my life to finding this USB because it just contains such significant value. And the question we'd have to ask ourselves, that I need to ask myself, is this what God wants me to do with my time and my energy? Is this the resources? Is this storing up treasures in heaven, or is this storing up treasures on earth? So now I'm also thinking about the parable of the dishonest manager, as the ESV puts it. But I want to go through about 13 verses of Luke chapter 16. He also said to the disciples, there was a rich man who had a manager, and charges were brought to him that this man was wasting his possessions. And he called him and said to him, what is this that I hear about you? Turn in the account of your management, for you can no longer be manager. The manager said to himself, what shall I do, since my master is taking the management away from me? I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm not ashamed to beg. I've decided what to do, so that when I am removed from management, people may receive me into their houses. So summoning his master's debtors, one by one, he said to the first, how much do you owe my master? He said, 100 measures of oil. Then he said to him, take your bill, sit down, write quickly, and write down 50. Then he said to another, how much do you owe? He said, 100 measures of wheat. And so the manager responded, take your bill and write 80. And the master commended the dishonest manager for his shrewdness. For the sons of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than the sons of light. And I tell you, Make friends for yourself by means of unrighteous wealth, so that when it fails, they may receive you into the eternal dwellings. One who is faithful in very little is also faithful in much, and one who is dishonest in very little is also dishonest in much. If then you have not been faithful in the unrighteous wealth, who will entrust to you the true riches? And if you have not been faithful in that which is another's, who will give you that which is your own? No servant can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. This parable has always been confusing for me to understand, like, what is happening. This shrewd manager seems to be not to be doing good. I mean, he got in trouble on the front end, so he lost his position. And in losing his position, he starts telling people that owe his master to cut what they owe in half. It doesn't seem like he's up to a whole lot of good. So in verse 4, he says, I've decided what to do, since he is too ashamed to beg and not strong enough to dig. And what he's decided to do is to obviously cut their debts in half in hopes that he's going to be received by these people. And then we scroll down to verse 9, where it says, And I tell you, make friends for yourselves by means of unrighteous wealth, so that when it fails, they may receive you into the eternal dwellings. For me, I think that's where I'm getting the most substance out of, is any possession that we have on earth has an expiration date. My home, the money I have saved for retirement, the money I have saved in the bank account, physical items have an expiration date. And so I'm reading this as instruction that with what I do have, God has gifted it to me to be a blessing to others and to make, as this says, make friends for yourself by means of unrighteous wealth. So again, I'm thinking back to, if I am this person that lost 8,000 Bitcoins, what am I doing with my life? I'm probably spending, unfortunately, I'm devoting my life to finding this treasure, and I'm wondering if that's the right treasure to be focusing on building, based off of what I'm learning from verse 9, where it's to make friends for myself by means of unrighteous wealth. The instruction that I would have is, I want to use what God has given to me to build relationships on earth. We have instruction from Jesus to store up treasures in heaven. And that's not obvious, that's not very clear on what that means. I'm extrapolating that the assets in heaven is relationships with other people based off of this other parable. Okay, if we're not to store up treasures on earth, but in heaven, what does that practically mean? It probably means having less earthly junk and maybe having greater relationships with other people. Now, practically, what does that look like, and how can we apply that to our finances? Because Jesus then says, where our treasure is, our heart is there also. So for me, that creates a little bit of motivation that in my planning with my finances, what's the underlying motive as I make a budget for a month? And if I'm not making a budget, should I be making a budget once a month and have a vision of what am I trying to get out of the money that I have? I've referenced before that the vision that I have for my money, which I do not live out consistently, is I want to maintain connection to God, or ideally improve it, and maintain connection to others. And there's decisions we can make that will make connection to God and others easier with the financial choices we make. And then there's decisions we can make that will make connection to God and others more difficult. So the point of reflecting on these scriptures is using these scriptures to prompt a question as you look through your expenses or create a budget. If you looked at my budget or my expenses last month, where would you make the conclusion that I'm building up treasures in? Would you assume based off of my expenses or my budget that I'm focused on earthly possessions or focused on heavenly possessions? So hopefully these verses, that question, can help inspire a conversation between you and God and how to get the most out of your money. Thanks for watching this content. It means a lot to us. Our vision is to inspire people to connect their faith to their finances. If you've enjoyed this content, please give us your feedback. Tell us things that we could do better, topics to talk about, or if you want us to change what book to have in the background. Totally happy with those ideas too. If you're looking for an advisor, please reach out.